Okay, I'm back from my whirlwind crazy I wouldn't say holiday because I wasn't celebrating the holidays, but December 23rd, I had decided to buy some tickets for my daughter and myself to go to Washington. She's in Virginia, I'm out here in California. But because of the weather conditions, they canceled the flights, all of them. And I thought, oh no, I've already put money into the Airbnb over there in Washington. My grandkids were going to meet us there, and because they're already over there, and my other daughter. And oh man, it was difficult because my daughter, she was stuck in the Chicago airport for 3 days, 3 nights, like Jonah and the whale. I, on the other hand, decided to go ahead and use my what I'm going to call a lemon car that I bought from my ex-neighbor who, he moved after I gave him the money. And he just left me with this car that had no title in his name. So I didn't want to skip title. And that's why I had to go ahead and put a UCC1 on it. But now I'm going to have to deal because when I was stuck in Washington with the weather, my car started acting up. They call it the TCS. I think it's the Traction Central System Control System. I don't know. Something about the wheels and the rain and anti-lock brake system, whatever. The codes are coming up as other things too, like just misread codes, like things that you couldn't figure out. At least the 5 different dealership and auto mechanic places that I went to could not find what the problem was. My last auto repair place, after spending $1,400 in diagnostics, said I needed 3 catalytic converters for the car. I was like, what? I thought there was only 1. He says some of them have 1, some have 2, some have 3. Yours has 3. Oh, great. But the other 2 were factory issued, so he couldn't get them. But he could change the back one, that could have been affecting the computer systems in my car. Anyways, let's just say I've got a collection of hotel keys from the different various cities that I got stuck in, all the way from Washington to Oregon to California, and many places in California along the way, because the car would only go about an hour before it just lost all power and stopped while I'm driving 60 miles an hour on the freeway. I must have broken down maybe 300 to 500 times, and I'm not kidding. I just stopped counting. It was horrible. So in the meanwhile, I realized when I was in Washington and in California, I might need to trade in the car. Well, how can you trade in a car that you don't have your name on the title, because the person who sold it to you didn't have his name on the title? He put it on the back. Liar Will Tipton. I'm going to have to write up something. I already wrote up 2 letters, sent it to him the first day I got the car, and then he moved away, and there was no recourse, because when I went to the district attorney, they said no address, no jurisdiction. But now I know where he lives. So today is the day that I'm going to need to write up a letter and send it to him as letter number 3, with the other 2 enclosed, and have a notary notarize it. I'm hoping that that administrative process with the 3 letters will help me. I do not know the rules of civil procedure. I do not necessarily want to go into the court systems. I don't. But I would like to see if I can get a judgment. Nevertheless, I don't really understand how that works. I'm going to have to read more. I hate when I don't know stuff. This is my mail that I have upon coming home. This is the dry mail that I have, not the wet mail. This is the dry mail. Now, I did receive some of my reports back from the CFPB and Wells Fargo, from FedEx, and how nice of my He's not even a neighbor. I would have to call him my enemy to put all my mail on my doorstep in the rain. So it was 2 days of drying all of that information so that the letters could be read. As you can see, it's very wet, or it's dry now, but it's kind of crumply. But this is the important paperwork that I've been working on and waiting for it to come. It's interesting to see that I have like the, what does it say? The deed of trust, herein called the security instrument. Yay. This is exactly the wording that I've been wanting to see, because I am going to have to do something. I don't know if it's with the FTC or what, but after I, oh my gosh, I really need to go through these. How many things do I have to do? You know, what to do first? I don't know. I just need to see this stuff. I need to see what it says. I already sent these things in registered mail, and I'm still getting bills, you know, statements. Well, maybe that's my check. And I just don't know how to do that yet. If you guys know how to do this stuff, let me know. You know what I'm talking about, the ones who know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of things in here. Wow, there's Verizon too. Oh my gosh, you guys, seriously. Hey, whoa, what? What? What is this? Good news, your total claim of $3,841.64 has been resolved in your favor. I don't even know about this particular claim. We previously notified you that we issued a permanent credit to your account. I don't even know what they're talking about. This is Bank of America. Dispute resolution services? I don't know what they're talking about, but that's really good news. There's a number there. I'm going to have to find out about this claim. I don't even know. Didn't even know what that was. Cool. That's a really welcome surprise. That one was going to go over here. Verizon, Ikes. I got one after the next. You know, I've already sent registered mail. Did I send anything to Verizon yet? Newark, New Jersey. Wow. They're saying that the bill is $239.67. But wait a minute. I don't see. Oh, there it is. Okay. I do see the remittance coupon on the bottom. I don't know how to do this stuff. I've been trying. Apparently trying isn't doing, and it's not getting me anywhere. I need to know what to do. Anyways, instead of me going through all of my mail, because I got, oh boy, there's so many things I have to attend to. I like that other one. Whoa. But the one thing I wanted to do is get back to my reading, because we need to know this stuff. So let me see if I can share a screen here. I believe that I was reading something about securitization is legal. And some people were asking me on the last video that I read was, where did this come from? Well, I don't know exactly where I got this document from. You know when you download something and you don't remember where you got it from? Well, this is something. This has got some things that we need to look at. I believe that I must have been ending on page 10, because that's where I'm at right here. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, and let's see if I can get it. Command plus. Yeah, we're going to get it a little bit larger so people can see what I'm reading. So this goes back to that securitization is illegal. And I'm sure it will say in the next few pages how to get a hold of this particular reading. So let's begin, shall we? It provides a blanket rationale for the massive past and ongoing U.S. clandestine focus on the Philippines. The CIA's need for black hole conditions there, in connection with successive U.S. operations to relieve Presidents Marcos and Aquino of the stolen and hidden Yamashita's gold. The U.S. fraudulent finance operations using Philippine institutions and related operations based in that territory, an aborted U.S. operation to convert the Philippines into a new U.S. state, as had been planned under Clinton for Somalia, and the frequent visits of operatives known to ourselves to the Philippines under cover of attending to orphanages. All right, so what is this about? 1 Clayton Act 15 USC 12, definitions, short title. A, antitrust laws, as used herein, includes the act entitled, an act to protect trade and commerce against unlawful restraints and monopolies, approved July 2nd, 1890. Sections 73 to 77, inclusive of an act entitled an act to reduce taxation, to provide revenue for the government and for other purposes of August 27th, 1894. An act entitled an act to amend sections 73 and 76 of the Act of August 27th, 1894, entitled an act to reduce taxation, to provide revenue for the government and for other purposes, approved February 12th, 1913, and also this act. I kind of hate it when they don't put the actual numbers and they have to spell it all out. Why are they doing that? I don't know. But all these numbers, they just sound like wah, 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 wah. Anyways, commerce, as used herein, means trade or commerce among the several states and within foreign and with foreign nations, or between the District of Columbia or any territory of the United States and any state, territory, or foreign nation, or between any insular possessions or other places that are under the jurisdiction of the United States, or between any such possession or place and any U.S. state or territory of the United States, or the District of Columbia, or any foreign nation, or within the District of Columbia, or any territory, or any insular possession, or other place under the jurisdiction of the United States, provided that nothing in this act contained shall apply to the Philippine Islands. Interesting. The word person or persons wherever used in this act shall be deemed to include corporations, and associations existing under or authorized by the laws of either the United States, the laws of any of the territories, the laws of any state, or the laws of any foreign country. Here's where it gets good. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac engaged in further illegal securitization, re-securitizing already securitized dud assets to dump back on the banks. Even so, it became apparent in early March that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, both controlled by the U.S. government, were planning to force financial enterprises such as the CIA's Bank of America Corporation, J.P. Morgan Chase and Company, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup Incorporated, to buy back further waves of newly securitized packages of mortgages. Example, the former government-sponsored enterprises are reportedly engaged again in repackaging mortgage securities already marked down to true value. In other words, they are trying to dump faulty securitized loans, as well as straight loans, back on the participating banks, under cover of such fantasies as the double-minded statement attributed to Sharon McHale, spokesperson for Freddie Mac, located adjacent to the CIA in McLean, Virginia, on 5th of March, 2010. Here's what she said. We are trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And let me see. Oh, I could do this. And as part of that, it's important that those dollars not go to loans that should not have been sold to us in the first place. Throwing the blame for Freddie Mac's own scandalous racketeering behavior back at the banks. Being interpreted, what this woman was saying was this: we are covering ourselves with a mantle of rectitude by posing as protectors of the taxpayer dollars in order to obfuscate our own ongoing racketeering behavior, even as we prepare further fraudulent finance securitizations in violation of the relevant U.S. legislation. And we couldn't care less because we are owned by the government itself, which is up to its neck in such violations. Oh, I think I did read this already and put it on my other, what's it called? Yeah, my other video. Okay, well, I'll continue reading this because there's good stuff coming ahead. And Paul Miller, a former examiner for the Federal Reserve, hardly a guarantee of integrity given the Fed's own reputation for fraudulent finance, based in Arlington, Virginia, let the cat out of the bag with, if you want to originate mortgages and keep that pipeline running, you have to deal with the pushbacks. It doesn't matter how much you hate Fannie and Freddie, and neither apparently does it matter to what extent the rule of law is cynically violated in order to keep the pipeline of fraudulent finance running. It doesn't matter that securitization is a form of racketeering. And what did I just find here in my own paperwork? This says it's an open-end deed of trust, securing future advances. This deed of trust is security for an equity line of credit agreement and disclosure statement maturing no later than April 1st, 2036. It hasn't come yet. Securitization hasn't happened yet. So there's securities stuck to our so-called loans. And I'm making a claim right here. Just saying. Okay. Gary Gensler is not as opposed to fraudulent finance as he seems. The appointment of Gary Gensler as chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission under President Obama was greeted with signs of relief on Wall Street. Here was a hardened former Goldman Sachs trader with 18 years' experience with that cynical, ruthless money shop who could be relied upon to act at all times in the interests of Wall Street, not the investor and taxpayer. But as has since been reported elsewhere, over a private lunch at the Waldorf Astoria in Midtown Manhattan on 6th of January 2010, the 52-year-old Gary Gensler caused indigestion among the self-satisfied guests at the luncheon. Timothy O'Hara, head of global credit at Credit Suisse Holdings USA Incorporated, Robert P. Kelly, CEO at Bank of New York Mellon Corporation, David B. Heller, co-head of the Securities Division at Goldman Sachs, and Seth Waugh, CEO of Deutsche Bank Americas. Because when one banker asked Gensler what or whom he saw as the biggest obstacles to reform in the securities and commodities sectors, he replied, "You." So he was speaking at a private lunch, and all those heads of banks were eating there, listening to him. And one of the bankers says, "So who do you see as the biggest obstacle to reform in the securities and commodities sectors?" And the guy said, "You." Mr. Gensler has been seeking derivatives control legislation that goes beyond current proposals, including what President Obama put forward during the summer of 2009, notwithstanding, get it? Not with standing. The fact that if the derivatives situation is not addressed, the forthcoming crash will be so horrific as to be likely to tip the world into open rather than covert warfare. A certain Dr. Samuel Hayes, professor emeritus of investment banking at Harvard Business School, Boston, told Bloomberg in February 2010 that Gensler is going to raise real concerns for financial firms. Derivatives are absolutely central to what is Wall Street in the 21st century, namely a casino. Okay. Command minus. I gotta switch pages now. I gotta go to page 12. Command minus. Okay, there we are. Now command plus. Make it bigger. Get over there. Let's see what we got. Nobody wants the regulations to affect them. That's for darn sure. Greater transparency is evidently all he's after. On closer examination, Mr. Gensler has actually been pushing for more transparency in the over-the-counter derivatives market so as to lower spreads between buyers and sellers and to make it easier for new competitors to enter the market, which the big banks aren't keen on, as more participants will deprive them of profit. Whoa. Interesting. So Gary Gensler is not actually in the business of tackling the underlying crisis arising from the determination of financial institutions to continue playing Russian roulette, using the model first developed by the U.S. intelligence power as it sought what it thought were foolproof methods of ensuring its financial independence from Congress and the open-ended, did you hear that? Open-ended funding pipelines. Oh, did I see something over here about open-end deed of trust? I see open-ended funding pipelines that it considered appropriate to buttress its usurped status as a recalcitrant state within a state, impervious to reform and determined to brook no interference with its stolen hegemony. I always think of hegemony like a hedge of money. No. Hegemony, I remember that word before. I've written that down in a few papers. It's, I think, well, I have to look it up real quick because my paper, oh, I'm getting all these missed calls. What the heck? Didn't know that. Let's look up the word shall we, just so that we can, not assume. Hegemony is the political, economic, and military predominance. Why are you at phone? Okay. It's the political, economic, and military predominance of one state over the other states. In ancient Greece, hegemony denoted the political, military dominance of the hegemon, city or state, over other city-states. In the 19th century, hegemony denoted the social or cultural predominance or ascendancy, predominance by one group within a society or milieu, and a group or regime which exerts undue influence within a society. In cultural imperialism, the leader state dictates the internal politics, and the societal character of the subordinate states that constitute the hegemonic sphere of influence, either by an internal sponsored government or by an external installed government. The term hegemonism denoted the geopolitical and cultural predominance of the one country over other countries. Example, the hegemony of the great powers established with European colonialism in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So in Marxist philosophy, Antonio Gramsci defined cultural hegemony as the ruling class manipulation of the value system and mores of a society, so that the ruling class perspective is the worldview of society. Thus, in the relations among the social classes of a society, the term hegemony describes the cultural dominance of a ruling class, which compels the subordination of the other social classes. So that's what that means. So when they said right here about so the U.S. intelligence power as it is sought, what it thought were foolproof methods of ensuring its financial independence from Congress, and the open-ended funding pipelines that it considered appropriate to buttress its usurped status as a recalcitrant state within the state, impervious to reform and determined to brook no interference with its stolen hegemony. Investors' money used to remunerate Wall Street. I believe that the remunerate means to make money, remunerate. I believe that's what it means, but I better probably look it up. Let me just see what remunerate means. Okay. I want to say remunerate, but remunerate. Yeah, remuneration is the pay. All right, so let me see what that says. Emoluments, redirects here for provisions in the United States Constitution. See emoluments clause, disambiguation. Remuneration is the pay or other financial compensation provided in exchange for an employee's services performed, not to be confused with giving away, or donating, or the act of providing to. A number of complementary benefits, in addition to pay, are increasingly popular remuneration mechanisms. Remuneration is one component of reward management. In the UK, it can also refer to the automatic division of profits attributable to members in a limited liability partnership. Okay, so people are getting paid for their services. So let's see, it says investors' money used to remunerate Wall Street. In any case, the derivatives institutions and their backup infrastructure have not the slightest intention of adopting any course other than business as usual. And on a far larger scale than in the past, this obtuse madness will lead to a global collapse. Get ready, people. It's getting ready to happen. As derivatives products are usually without real value. As a noted article in the New York Times of 7th February 2010 at last stated, investment banks trading derivatives do not own the mortgage bonds. Investment banks trading derivatives do not own the mortgage bonds. The obligations from homeowners. Notes signed by homeowners. What? Or the mortgage deeds of the deeds of trust. Right here. This deed of trust is security for an equity line of credit agreement and disclosure statement maturing no later than April 1st, 2036. Open-end deed of trust, securing future advances. This was my damaged paperwork that I received from FedEx because that piece of crap next door over there decided to put my mail, this, on my doorstep in a storm, rain, and I haven't been home. I had to dry that piece of paper. And now I'm just getting home to read this and find out that there's the same language on the recorder's recording here of the paper. So I'm seeing the same things here. When it says the deeds of trust, I have to read this so I know how to be able to fight this. So, as noted in the article in the New York Times, I'm going to read this again. At last stated, investment banks trading derivatives do not own the mortgage bonds, the obligations from homeowners, notes signed by homeowners, or the mortgage deeds of the deeds of trust. What other examples could I think of? You know, when you go to the car dealership and you fill out an application, and then when you decide that you're not going to be working with this particular company for one reason or another, you ask for the application back and they say, oh no, we are required to keep this in our files for up to 2 years, according to law. They don't own those notes. Yeah, they supplied them with their paper and their ink. But they don't own, those car dealerships don't even own that application. For you to ask for your application back with your personal information, you should be able to have that and take that. But what do? What do these companies do? Because they got your power of attorney when you signed up for the application, and they wanted to be able to check your credit with the Social Security number. What are they going to do with those pieces of paper, the application? They're going to shop them out. Well, what should we be doing if we're going to leave and they don't give us the actual application? Should we send in a notice of rescission so that they don't go ahead behind our backs and try to sell those applications? Because obviously we're not doing business. I already let them know ahead of time. I said, should I be rescinding or revoking my signature here? And the guy was like, no, you don't have to do that. I'm like, I just was wondering if you're going to do something behind my back. He says, no, we're not going to shop it to any banks. Are you getting paid for that? I have a feeling that they're getting paid for those applications. I think they get a commission. I think that the dealerships have a front of a car dealership and they're really brokers. That's what I think. I mean, they looked at me a little suspicious, like looking at me, like looking through the thing. Looking behind the table that she is in the other room. I just noticed that they're acting suspicious, you know. I just have my suspicions. But anyways, let me continue reading. The structured products consisting of bundled documents. Yeah, you know what that structured product is? That application with all that stuff. They consist of bundled documents ostensibly relating to the above, but having no recourse to underlying real value were, however, invested with value arising from the name of the institution marketing the asset. That is to say, arbitrary value arising from the fact that as Goldman Sachs compliance officer actually admitted to the editor of the service, a structured product is worth what someone is prepared to pay for it. A penetrating statement which encapsulates the possibility that it may be or is worthless, which is indeed the case. Here's that statement. I've read this before. The money you make by misusing my money is my money. Example, the homeowners. The money sloshing around between investment banks in this dirty market was investors' money, unwittingly advanced into pools of capital, which winds up being used primarily to finance the fees, profits, insurance proceeds, hang on a second. Just a second. Okay, I had to answer that solicitation telephone call. But anyway, so here we are. It says, which winds up being used primarily to finance the fees, profits, insurance proceeds, insurance premia, and so forth. All for the benefit of Wall Street, paid to the investment banks and not to investors who stumped up the money in the first place. These fees and relationships are not and have never been disclosed to the homeowner. Hey, I know, we just found out. Despite in the United States clear legislation requiring such transparency, including the Truth in Lending Act and deceptive lending, which require full transparency and disclosure. Right. So how long has it been since 2012 that I had a short sale? And I just now, what is it, 2023? Got the information that I have a deed of trust that's called the security instrument. And it says things about an equity line of credit agreement and disclosure statement. Really? What disclosures? Exclusive of interest, sum outstanding at any time of $85,000, which is due and payable, if not sooner paid, no later than the 30th anniversary of the opening of the equity line of credit. Interesting. So they have a maturing thing of 2036. And it was an open-end credit agreement. Interesting. Yeah, I just found out. just now. I don't remember them telling me any of this stuff when I got it. Anyways, further legislation applicable to the securities sector in the United States is relisted below. In the list that we have republished at the foot of our website, reports for the past 3 years. So they are going to tell you right here about their website as well. So here is that. By the way, the people that were asking about what this is called, it's called the illegality of securitization, a legal analysis by Michael Nogugu, who is a certified public accountant in Maryland. All right, so just so that you know, I said it again. That's what this is called, the illegality of securitization. So the list of applicable securities, regulations, and laws is augmented by a legal tutorial, which again we have published for the past 3 years at the foot of these reports. I will get down to that and I will mention it to you when I see it. It would appear that notwithstanding such reminders, Wall Street and its compliant infrastructure, as well as its co-conspiring portfolio of dubious foreign trade counterparty institutions, has every intention of continuing to violate the relevant U.S. rules and legislation, while at the same time continuing to abuse, in the mortgage sector, the homeowner, that would be us, with the same cynicism as in the past. Given the legal principle that the money you make from misusing my money is my money, it is quite clear that undisclosed fees, profits, kickbacks, and other financial abuses perpetrated by these big speculative financial entities, which produce no real wealth at all, but simply move money around between themselves, are payable to the homeowner who signed the loan papers. Did you see that? Quotation, loan papers, in the first place, because it's not a loan. These are not loans. They're using our credits, which are full faith and credit, 100% backed by the United States of America. They're supposed to be paying all obligations. Title to 18.8 says are the obligations of the United States. So nobody should be getting denied credit. And there are no loans. Banks don't loan money according to the Banking Act, Title 12. Read the first line. The illegality, this is what this is, of securitization. This is a legal analysis by Michael Ngugu, certified public accountant from Maryland, B. Arch City College of New York, MBA, Columbia University, attended Suffolk Law School, Boston, USA. Abstract, under U.S. laws, securitization is illegal, primarily because it is fraudulent and causes very specific violations of RICO. Usury and antitrust laws. Securitization, racketeering. Securitization of many types of assets, loans, credit cards, auto receivables, intellectual property, etc., has become and remains prevalent, particularly for financially distressed companies and companies with low or mid-tier credit ratings. What does that mean right there? Oh, okay. So, when they do a securitization on your deed or whatever, these are assets like your loan, credit card, auto receivables, intellectual property, has become and remains prevalent, particularly for financially distressed companies and companies or people with low or mid-tier credit ratings. This analysis focuses on securitization as it pertains to asset-backed securities and mortgage-backed securities, and analyzes critical legal and corporate governance issues. Editor's note: this analysis does not elaborate that the illegal securitization model was developed and hijacked by the criminalized intelligence power, which is our contribution to the issue, but that it is the sum of the matter to be kept in mind at all times. Key words: securitization, antitrust, RICO, which is the racketeering, I don't know what that means. One time I read it. Let me see what it was. Racketeering. Let me look it up. I guess I have to look it up. We want to look at RICO. RICO. All right, let's see what it says here. All right. Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. So racketeer, influenced, and corrupt Organizations Act. It's a United States federal law that provides for extended criminal penalties. Whoa. And a civil cause of action for acts performed as part of an ongoing criminal organization. Organized crime. Basically, that's what that is. Organized Crime Control Act of 1970. So the types of criminal charges, RICO stands for the Racketeering, Influenced, and Corporate or Corrupt Organizations Act. Let me just look at that. Let's see. It was a groundbreaking piece of legislation passed in the United States in 1970 with the goal of financially crippling the mafia. However, it has evolved to have a variety of applications today against many organizations aside from the mafia. RICO, which is Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations, expanded the scope of potential prosecution against people who participate in organized crime, along with the penalties upon conviction. In order for an offender to qualify for RICO and be charged with racketeering, he or she must violate 2 of 35 statutes within 10 years. And the violations must be linked in some way. For example, both rape and murder are included in the RICO rules, but someone who commits a rape and a murder would not necessarily be charged under RICO unless the crimes could be linked to organized crime in some way, because RICO charges rely on proving a pattern of behavior rather than specific crimes. They are generally easier to prove in court. Under RICO, the assets of suspects can be frozen, preventing them from hiding their profits excuse me, until the case can be resolved. If the RICO charge is proved, it can result in up to 20 years of imprisonment on each count of racketeering, along with the forfeiture of all racketeering-related assets, including those tied into legitimate businesses. Furthermore, financial damages may also be imposed. Obviously, RICO is designed to hit the pockets of organized criminals by ensuring that legitimate businesses cannot be used as a cover to launder illegitimately gained money. It also allows civil claims, which means that people who feel that they have been harmed as a result of racketeering can also bring civil lawsuits, resulting in even more financial penalties. Aside from the federal act, many states also have their own criminal and civil RICO laws. Generally, these closely resemble the federal act, but when in doubt, check with a local attorney for more specific information about the application and processes involved. The effect of RICO has been quite significant because of both the enhanced criminal sanctions and the financial repercussions of a RICO charge. Many criminals decided to try to strike a deal with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. This contributed to the weakening of the mafia in the latter half of the 20th century. Because these deals often involve turning in other members of a criminal organization or offering to assist with an investigation in exchange for reduced prison time and keeping some of their financial assets. Guide to navigating a criminal defense case. Oh. Yeah, you can look that stuff up. And the history of American gaming laws and federal racketeering and online gambling, like, players at risk for prosecution, Wire Wager Act, intersection between illegal gambling and organized crime. There's a lot of good stuff that you can look up. But let's continue on. So they got constitutional law, capital markets, complexity, fraud. Some American English spelling has been retained. Main abbreviations. ABS is asset-backed securities, and SPV is a special purpose vehicle. Editor's introduction. Under U.S. legislation, securitization is illegal. Indeed, many authors have illustrated the, let me reduce this paper. Command, okay, let's move over to page 14. Oh, deficiencies in securitization. All right, so let's Command plus. And then we'll go back up here. This analysis, what I'm reading right here, is an analysis written by that Michael Makabubu guy, or whatever his name is. He sounds like he's African. But he is an accountant, public accountant. And he wrote this. This is an analysis. So this analysis focuses on securitization as it pertains to asset-backed securities and mortgage-backed securities. So like I was showing you, my liquid paper that I had to dry got all this information from Wells Fargo. They're doing a little bit of an investigation because I've asked them to audit the account. So this is just the closing department, when it was World Savings. Wow. And on here, just in the ELOC, which is the equity line of credit, I'm finding that it's an open-ended equity line of credit. And this is trust. This is a trust securing future advances. It's got to do with security instruments. And we're reading about securitization with your house or mortgage-backed securities. So the existing literature on legal and corrupt governance issues pertaining to securitization is extensive, but has several gaps that have not been addressed at all or sufficiently. Whether securitization is legal, whether securitization causes usury, the standards for usurious loans, forbearance, the specific components of cost of capital for purposes of assessing usury violations, antitrust liability in securitizations transactions, federal state RICO liability in securitization transactions, the constitutionality of securitization transactions, the validity of contracts used in effecting securitization transactions, whether securitization usurps the purpose of the U.S. Bankruptcy Code. Yeah, that's something too right there. If the United States is bankrupt and they're getting the money from the people, from the people's credit, and they turn around and act like they're actually loaning us money, which they're not, and then do usury on us, meaning they're charging us interest on it, that represents serious fraud. This analysis seeks to fill these significant gaps in the literature and to answer questions vexing the United States and international financial markets for the definitive elimination of doubt in support of our long-standing demonstration that securitization and the creation and marketing of structured products represents serious fraud. Although the following analysis is supported with U.S. case law, the principles derived are applicable to securitization transactions in both common law countries and civil law countries, which means that they are applicable in, for instance, the United Kingdom. Hey, that's good to know. In analyzing the legality of securitization, the following criteria are relevant. Origins and history of securitization, legislative history, evolution of securitization processes, and current practices. Carlson, 1998, Janger, 2002, Lupica, 2000. 4. Trace the known history of U.S. securitization to direct and specific efforts, collaborations to avoid the impact of U.S. bankruptcy laws. Klee and Butler and other authors have traced the history of securitization to attempts to handle the problem of non-performing debt. Types of contracts used in securitization. The primary criteria for enforceability. Purposes, wording, and scope of applicable laws, state contract laws, state trusts laws. We have to look up our state and look up the trust laws of the state we live in. U.S. Bankruptcy Code and state federal securities laws. The legislative intent of the U.S. Congress in drafting and revising the U.S. Bankruptcy Code. How the applicable laws are applied in securitization processes by market participants, regulators, and lawyers that represent investors, the people, the markets, and entities and organizations affected by securitization. The usefulness of existing, if any, possible and proposed, if any, deterrence measures designed to reduce fraud, crime, misconduct, such has been extensively reported by this service and in International Currency Review. There's a hyperlink right there. Transaction costs, the results and consequences of the application or non-application of relevant laws. Securitization violates state usury laws. Whoa. Securitization violates state usury laws because the resulting effect interest rate typically exceeds legal allowable rates, right? Set by state usury laws. There is a substantial disagreement, conflicts in case law holdings among various U.S. court jurisdictions and also within some judicial jurisdictions about some issues, and these conflicts have not been resolved by the U.S. Supreme Court 6 on these issues. Even the case for which the Supreme Court denied certiorari of vary substantially in their holdings. The pertinent issues are as follows. Number 1, what constitutes usury? And number 2, what costs should be included when calculating the effective cost of funds? 3, what types of forbearance qualify for applicability of usury laws? 4, conditions for preemption of state usury laws. Where the securitization is deemed an assignment of collateral, the effective cost of funds for the securitization transaction is not the advertised interest cost, investor's coupon rate. Of the ABS securities, but rather the sum of the following elements. Investor's coupon rate. I'm wondering, could that be the remittance coupon? The greater of the sponsor's originator annual cost of equity in percentages, or the percentage annual cash yield from the collateral in a situation where the SPV's corporate documents expressly state that the excess spread should be paid to the sponsor. The excess spread should be subtracted from the resulting percentage. The excess spread is defined as the gross cash yield from the collateral, minus the interest paid to investors, minus the servicing expense paid to the servicer, minus charge-offs, impaired collateral. All right. I'm going to just read these last two paragraphs on page 15, and I'll have to read more later because I'm getting tired. The amortized value difference. The difference prevailing between the market value of the collateral and the amount raised from the ABS offering before banker's fees, which is then amortized over the average life of the ABS at a discount rate equal to the U.S. Treasury bond rate of same maturity, and then expressed as percentage of the market value of the collateral. This difference can range from 10 to 30% of the market value of the collateral, and is highest where there is a senior-junior structure, and the junior first loss piece serves only as credit enhancement. Amortized total periodic transaction costs. The pre-offering transaction costs are amortized over the average life of the ABS, a rate equal to the interest rate on an equivalent term U.S. Treasury bond. The periodic transaction costs are then added to the amortized pre-offering transaction cost to obtain total periodic transmission costs, which is expressed as a percentage of the value of the pledged collateral. I'm getting really sleepy. I'm going to have to take a nap. And then I'll get back and try to read more so I can see if I can explain it too. I don't know. Okay, see you on the next video. Getting tired here.